Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week with the Deacs. I'm going to be your host, Eli, and we're going to be kicking off this 2020 football season. So, to start with, we're going to go over the schedule. I'm going to, of course, give you my predictions on how Wake Forest is going to do this year. And it's definitely been a weird year so far for the Deacs, and we haven't even gotten started yet, of course, because of all this COVID mess. And Sage Surratt opting out is also going to be a huge effect on the Deacs year this season. All right, so looking at our schedule, of course, tomorrow's big game at Clemson. Thankfully, we're going to be at home for College game day, but it's still going to be a struggle game for the Deacs because of it being the first game of the year. Now, I don't think there could be any better time for us to play Clemson this season, strictly because they're not going to be having that much practice coming into this because, like Wake, they've been hurt by this COVID pandemic, as everyone has, and they haven't been able to get as much practice time in. Because of this, I do think that they're going to be a little bit rusty, and Wake's going to be able to be in this game at least in the first half. By the end of it, I do think Clemson will pull it off, but I could see this game being a 2-3, maybe 4-score game, but I don't see Wake getting killed as bad as we did, say, last year against Clemson. But in Game 1, I do have an L for the Deacs. Week 2, we will be at NC State playing in Carter Finley, and I think this is going to be a hard-fought game for the Deacs. It's going to be in prime time, and I do think that Wake will come away with a win, but I do think this game's going to be close. It's going to be a normal Wake State rivalry, but I do think the Deacs will pull this one out. I'm saying maybe a 1-score game there. Then we've got the Notre Dame-Wake Forest game, which was scheduled to be in Charlotte, and of course, because of this COVID-19 pandemic, will be moved to Wake, and I think it's going to be a really close game. I really do. The last time these two teams met, I actually thought Wake would beat Notre Dame, and of course, that did not happen. But we've had some close contests before with them, and this year I don't think it's going to be any different. I think Wake's going to be in this game tooth and nail, but I just think the Notre Dame team, they're going to come away with it. So I think Wake's going to be 1-2 coming out of their first 3 games, and the game against Campbell could not come soon enough. And I think Wake will, of course, trample the Fighting Camels, but 2-2 after 4 games, of course, not where Wake would want to be, but considering who you've played, it could definitely be worse. Then Wake is going to stay at home. They're going to continue their 4-game home stretch here, and they're going to be playing Virginia. And I think this is going to be a really hard-fought game because the Cavaliers, of course, they won the Coastal last year. They beat Virginia Tech. They're riding on a ton of momentum. But something's telling me Wake pulls that one out. I think Wake's going to be 2-2 here. They're going to be really hungry. And I think they beat Virginia in this game. And then they play another team from Virginia right up next. And I do not think Wake is as lucky. I think it's going to be the same result last year when we were over in Blacksburg. I say Wake does not beat Virginia Tech, but does beat Virginia. And that will have set us at 3-3 on the year at that point. And then we're going to go to the Carrier Dome to play Syracuse. Of course, last year, Kendall Hinton gave that one away in just the last couple of seconds at Syracuse. It was an absolute heartbreaker for Wake. And I think it's going to make Wake just that much more hungry. I say we beat Syracuse, and I'm calling a blowout for that game. I really think Wake is going to take it to Syracuse in the Carrier Dome. Next up is UNC, and this is going to be my biggest, say, upset pick, because not only do I think Wake will beat North Carolina, I think Wake is going to blow them out. I don't think any Carolina fans are going to be able to talk about there being 1 second left on the clock this time. I'm calling a 2-score game on this one. Everyone thinks UNC is going to be top 25, a real contender this year, and while I do think they'll improve, I'm calling 7-8 wins for Carolina, and not the season everyone was kind of predicting for them, and I do think Wake will pull out a win there in Chapel Hill. And next up is another Tobacco Road rival for Wake. It's going to be the Duke Blue Devils. And in this game, I think Wake is going to complete the Tobacco Road sweep for the second year in a row. I think Wake will beat Duke. Now this game I think is going to be like the NC State game. It's going to be a really close, hard-fought game, typical rivalry game for Wake, but I do think we'll get the upper hand on it. After that, we've got the Hurricanes at home, and this was a 50-50 ball for me. The Hurricanes, we know that they had made some improvements last year with Diaz, but no one really knows how good that quarterback's going to be. Some people think he could be a Heisman hopeful, but he hasn't played enough to really show all that much. So I do have Miami beating Wake in that game, but I think it's going to be a tight game, and I really do think it could go either way. But I'll take Miami in a close one there. And then it's our season finale against Louisville, where Wake had that heartbreaking, controversial loss last year. And if you ask me, we still recovered that onside kick. But this year, I think Satterfield's going to progress the Cardinals just that much more, and I think they are going to be a really tough team to reckon with. I could see Louisville, I only see them losing maybe 2-3 games and being right up there the level of about Carolina. So I do see Louisville winning that game. And all in all, that's going to put Wake, as of my projection, at I think 6-5, I think, will be my final record because I have losses at Louisville, Miami, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, and Clemson. And I don't know, I think it's still going to be a winning season for the Deacs. I say they go bowling if they still do the bowls this year due to the pandemic. I think it's going to be a decent season for Wake. I would like to see how Sam Hartman, see how he can improve on what he did last year, because he only got to come in a little bit backing up Jamie Newman. But there's definitely been some big shakeups in the Wake depth chart, which I will get to now. Of course, being without Sage Surratt is going to be a huge hit to the Deacs. He was the leading receiver before he got hurt last year, and I still think he might have led in yards even while he was hurt. And this year we're going to see a couple new faces. Donovan Green, of course, the exciting redshirt freshman, is going to be our wide receiver number 1 or main wideout. But we get to see Roberson. We'll see some more of him in the slot now that Kendall Hinton has moved on. And the real battle, I think, is going to be for that wide receiver 2 position. There's A.T. Perry, of course. We saw some of him last year. And if he could get his hands worked out, he has great speed, and he seems like a really good route runner. He could be a big threat for us. But then there's Nolan Gruel. And this kid has had a great camp per Dave Clawson. And I don't know, I've got a good feeling about this kid. I really think he can be a good receiver for us. And we should get to see a good bit of him this year. If he can't beat out Perry for the wide receiver 2 job, he'll still come in on plays where we've got 4 wideouts. We look at Zach Tom, who has switched from center to left tackle. That's a big change for him. I still think he's going to be just as effective, though. I think that's actually going to be a good switch. Looking at some other things, Christian Beal-Smith is listed as the starting running back right now, but I think he's going to be splitting carries a lot with Kenneth Walker coming out of the backfield. Of course, Basham and Kamara are going to be heading up the defensive line. Jaquez Williams, I expect a really good season from him. He made tons of tackles last year, and I think he's going to pick up right where he left off. You look a little farther down the depth chart, you see Ryan Sminda. I think he's in for a really good year. But somebody that I think started to show out last year and is going to come in huge this year is Travion Red. I see Red having a really good year this season if he can stay healthy. He was a huge threat last year, both on pass rushes. He made a couple of clutch interceptions and some big tackles. I see him coming in as a real leader for this team. Jasir Taylor at corner, I think, is going to be a huge help to our secondary. I think he'll progress a lot this year being a senior. And Luke Masterson, of course, he's a great leader on the team. Nasir Greer will progress pretty good. So our secondary struggled some last year, but I'm excited about them this year. I really think they're going to make some huge strides. And I was happy to hear Ivan Mora won the punter position. and he is just a redshirt freshman, so we can expect a lot from him as he can progress. Um, of course, Skiba, I'm hoping he'll be just as good as ever. And hopefully this year our kickoff and kick return teams can improve a little bit. We had huge struggles there last year. We gave up over 3 touchdowns that I can remember on kick and punt returns, and that's unacceptable as a special teams unit. So hopefully we can get that cleaned up this year. And now I will look at just analyzing the Clemson game coming up tomorrow. And the last few years, you can look, we have not played our starting quarterback, and we have set out multiple other players against Clemson because of coincidental, we'll call them injuries that have happened. And this year, I wonder if we'll see the same thing, or because of the higher profile we've got in this game, if Clawson will decide to play some of our star players, because we've not had that in previous years. I do think Hartman will start, but I wonder who, if anybody, will sit out. If somebody like Nasir Greer or Basham will only play like a half or sit out this game just to try to avoid injury. It's a decent strategy, but I would really like to see what this team could do in the first game of the year, so I really hope our stars get to play. But like I said earlier, I don't think we'll be able to beat Clemson, but it's all about how we come out of the gate. If we've had better practices and we've got better reps in than they do, I really do think we could contend early on with Clemson. But that's about all I've got. I will be back next week analyzing the Clemson game and talking about NC State. And you guys aren't going to want to miss it, so I'll catch you there. See ya.